Today we're going to be making Scotch eggs, and the reason we're doing Scotch eggs, it fits quite well into the learning because we're going to try and use all local produce for this particular recipe. So we can use locally sourced eggs that can come from a local farm, or some people have chickens at home that lay their own eggs. We can have locally sourced flour, so flour from Shipton Mill for example, where they produce local flour from local wheat. We could also have sausage meat that has been prepared. So I've got sausages here at Gloucester Old Spot sausages or you can get sausages from a local butcher. So all these ingredients pretty much can be sourced locally if you look around in your shops for those ingredients. I'm going to start by boiling the eggs. Now there's lots of ways you can boil eggs, but what I'm going to do, these eggs have been at room temperature. So the reason that you have eggs at room temperature to boil them is you hope that they won't split when you put the boiling water on. So I've actually boiled water in the kettle, and I'm just going to pour that water over them. So I know they're going to actually start cooking quite quickly when I put them onto the hob. So make sure those eggs are covered, and then you're going to put them on the hob, bring them to the boil, and when that water starts boiling, you can time 8 to 10 minutes to ensure that they are hard boiled and boiled all the way through. It's really important that we get a solid centre for the Scotch eggs. If the eggs are cooked, you need to take them out of the boiling water. So I'm using a slotted spoon here and just popping them into some cold water. This just helps to cool them a little bit quicker. Sometimes in a boiled egg you get a little black line around the yolk, and people say that if you cool them quickly you avoid getting that black line. So there's a chemical reaction which is causing that black line, and the cooling of it will hopefully prevent it from happening, but we'll see when we cut open the Scotch eggs later. I remove the shell just by bashing the shell down, loosening it, and then peeling it off. Now once you've done these, you might just want to give them a little rinse under the tap. Try and do it a little bit carefully so that you don't remove and break the white too much. And rinsing them under the tap will get rid of any excess shell. That's coming off nicely. So nearly done. There we go. So what I might do now is just rinse those under a cold tap to make sure all the excess shell is off of them. Okay, so we're going to prepare the sausages. Now I've actually got skinless sausages here, so there's sausages without the skins on. If you did have sausages that had skins on, you would just give them a little nip here, and then you would peel the skins off and discard the skin, so you've only got the sausage meat to use. Now 2 sausages will be equivalent to what you need to use for each Scotch egg. And if you want to, you could use sausage meat, so you can actually buy that in a pack and just cut that into 4 pieces and use that. But I think it's quite nice and cheap and effective to use sausages as I'm doing here. The sausage meat, I'm going to prepare it into a ball shape. I'm actually going to use flour to help me do that. So I'm going to coat my hands in flour, and I'm going to get the 2 sausages, and I'm going to mix those 2 sausages together so they become one piece. Now your hands will get pretty sticky here, so just use that flour to make sure that it's relatively easy to handle. So you should end up with 1 ball of sausage meat. So I've got 1 there. I'm just going to do the same to the others. Now because these are skinless sausages, they are a little bit sticky. I think you might find you don't get in such a sticky mess with the ones that you've taken the skin off. If you do, don't worry about it. It does feel a little bit uncomfortable. Don't worry about it. Just make sure you're using that flour to help you handle. Into the messy bit. So you can see that I've formed one of the balls of sausage meat into a flat circle of mixture of sausage meat. So I'm just going to get this ball here and just show you what I did. So what I'm doing is I'm just squeezing it and using my thumbs to press it out into a flat. Now you want to get into a flat piece. Now you want to get this piece approximately the size of your hand in order to encase the egg properly. Again, if it gets sticky, just pop a bit of flour onto your hand. There's no problem with that. Okay, so once you've got your 2 pieces ready, you then want to encase the egg that you've cooked in the sausage meat. So I'm just going to grab this piece, I'm going to hold it in my hand, pop the egg in, and curve and mould that sausage meat round. Now what you'll see is there's a gap there at the moment, so I've got some quite thick bits of sausage meat, so I'm just bringing those together. Now if I bring them together like that and they aren't really sealed properly, the egg will probably open up when I cook it. So I just want to make sure that all those bits of sausage meat that weren't attached are joined up, which you can see that I've done there. So I'm just checking that Okay, then I want to just leave that to one side while I do the second one. So grab the egg, make sure you're encasing it in that sausage meat and that you are joining up, okay, that sausage meat. Now, these Scotch eggs traditionally would be cooked in a deep fat fryer. Now, we don't deep fat fry in school very often. We only during exams when you've got a one-on-one supervision, just for health and safety reasons. So a healthier way to cook them is to bake them in the oven, and that's what we're going to be doing with these, because there's actually quite a lot of fat in sausages, as I'm sure we're aware. So we don't really want to add any more by frying them. So hoping very much that I've sealed that up nice and tightly. Comes a messy bit. What we're going to do is we're going to get our breadcrumbs and we're just going to pop those onto a plate to make it a bit easier. And I'm going to pop them all on just in case I don't need all of those. I've got my flour, my egg and my breadcrumbs, and that's the order that we need to coat these. Okay, so and some people call it braiding, where you do the egg and breadcrumbs. So we've done this before when we've made chicken goujons, parmesan pork. There are other recipes that you can use this technique. So I'm going to grab the Scotch egg, the sausage meat around the egg, and I'm going to coat that firstly in flour. Get it really coated in flour. This just helps the egg to stick and then the breadcrumbs to stick. Okay, I'm actually going to do the second one as well. So I've got them both ready for the messy, very messy stage that you're going to go through in a minute. Okay, so I'll move the flour out of the way. So now I'm going to get the egg. I'm going to roll this around in the egg, then the breadcrumbs, and then straight onto my baking tray. So try and get it completely coated with that egg. Make sure that that egg is nicely beaten up, so you've loosened all the egg particles there. And then I'm going to coat it into the breadcrumbs. Okay. If I want to, then I can reshape it slightly before I pop it onto my baking tray. I'm just going to add a couple more breadcrumbs just in case I need them. So again, we're going to pop the egg. Very, very messy, very sticky, and some people might be put off by that, but just get over it, get it done. It doesn't take very long, and then you can wash your hands. You can see with this recipe you do need to be really careful of cross-contamination, because I'm getting sausage meat, egg absolutely everywhere. So tidying up, cleaning down is going to be very, very important. The egg, the flour and the breadcrumb have all been contaminated with the sausage meat, so it will need to be thrown away. Now you won't be able to reuse that. You can see that the egg that we mixed up, the raw egg, has stuck the breadcrumbs on. So that what will happen to that egg in the oven, that will set, because as we said earlier, the proteins in the egg coagulate, or they change shape and structure. And as that sets, it will stick totally those breadcrumbs to the sausage meat, which will hopefully produce a really good Scotch egg. So we're going to put those in an oven, and we're going to bake them at quite high temperature, so between 180 and 200 degrees centigrade. If it's a fan oven, 180. If it's a normal oven, then 200 degrees. And we're going to cook them probably for about 30 minutes. Remember that the sausage meat is quite thin. It's not going to be as thick. It's not as thick as your average sausage, so it actually won't take the meat that long to cook, and the egg is already cooked inside. But it is important to give the sausage meat a good amount of time to cook thoroughly and to get them to go a nice golden colour. Before we put them in the oven, I just want to explain the baking tray that you use to put them on must have an edge to it, because fat will come out of these Scotch eggs, so it needs to be contained on the baking tray. The only reason for me putting baking paper down is to keep the condition of the baking tray good and to ease my washing up. You also have to be really careful putting them in and out of the oven, so make sure you're wearing oven gloves to put them in the oven and to take them out, and just be careful of any hot fat that might be there when you take them out of the oven. Okay, so you can see now that these are cooked. I've taken them out of the oven. You can see that one has split slightly, which is a shame, but this is hopefully what they would end up like. You always get a slightly overcooked part at the bottom. That's just a consequence of them being cooked in the oven and not being cooked in a deep fat fryer. I've just cut this one in half, and you can see that I don't have that grey line that you sometimes get around the egg. So that's how you make the Scotch egg. I hope you enjoy making them, and there'll be another recipe coming next week.